예수님 이렇게 앞서서 서시기 위해서 목사 김철기 같은
Our show is called The Way of the Master because we want to reach people with the gospel the way that Jesus did. And the truth is, for all of us as Christians, we have something that's more valuable than the cure for cancer. And if we have unsaved family and friends, we've got to go to them. And we want to go with them, but many of us are afraid of how to do that. We don't want to look like a fool, we're afraid of what to say, and we don't want to offend people. So that's what we're here to talk about, how to share your faith effectively and without offense.
And the foundation of our teaching is to follow the footsteps of Jesus. That's why it's called the Way of the Master. We want to do what Jesus did. Biblical evangelism is Lord of the proud, grace to the humble. And we see Jesus taking the gospel to Nicodemus and Nathanael, John chapter 1 and John chapter 3. And when he spoke to humble people, he gave them the gospel. Because the gospel is for the brokenhearted, the humble, those that have ears to hear. And Nicodemus was humble of heart, he knew the law, and same with Nathanael. So if you look around and just experiment a little, you'll find most people in contemporary society aren't humble-hearted. They're self-righteous, they don't see the need of God's forgiveness. So then we must do what Jesus did and take them the law, the 10 Commandments, to bring the knowledge of sin.
And this concept was completely new to me. And I experienced a tremendous amount of frustration trying to talk with people about their need for Jesus. Have you ever experienced something like this? You go up to someone and you begin talking with them, you start to share your faith and explain that Jesus died on the cross for their sins. And people say, hey man, don't push that stuff on me. I'm glad you found something that works for you, but I'm not interested. I have my own set of beliefs and I'm fine. I don't need Jesus. Well, how do you get through to a person like that? They believe something else, they're happy, they're content, and they don't want Jesus. You don't want to sound like a salesman trying to push something on them that they don't want. So how do you get through to them? Because you know that without Jesus, they'll perish.
This is why the law is so valuable. Charles Spurgeon, the Prince of Preachers, called it our ablest auxiliary, our most powerful weapon. Martin Luther said these words regarding God's law, speaking of those in his day that preached something else than what Jesus preached.
Satan, the god of all dissension, stirreth up daily new sects. And last of all, which of all others I should never have foreseen or once suspected, he has raised up a sect such as teach that men should not be terrified by the law, but gently exhorted by the preaching of the grace of Christ.
So what he was saying was, look, there's a sect that's risen up.
Within Christianity.
Within Christianity, and they were teaching that men shouldn't be terrified by God's law, but they should be exhorted by the preaching of the grace of Christ. Exhorted gently, which sadly adequately sums up most of the methods of modern evangelism.
Again, Jesus used the law, the moral law of God, the 10 Commandments, like a mirror to show a person the condition of his heart before God. Then they could realize their need for God's forgiveness. So, in this program, we are going to look at one of the commandments. Which one is it? The 7th commandment. And it says, "Thou shalt not commit adultery." Now, most of us can say that we're doing pretty well with that one. Most of us can say, well, I'm not married, so my sex outside of marriage technically is not adultery. And some can say, well, I've never cheated on my wife, so I'm okay. But Jesus took it a step further and explained the details of that commandment.
Well, the Bible says of the Messiah, he shall magnify the law and make it honorable. What the religious leaders had done at the time of Jesus was say that all God requires is an outward piety, an outward form of godliness. But Jesus said God requires truth of the inward parts. And I remember the night of my conversion, April 1972, reading the words of Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus opened up the spiritual nature of the law. And this is what he said. You've heard it said by them of old, you shall not commit adultery. And I remember thinking to myself, well, that's sweet, I haven't committed adultery. And if there's a heaven, I'll probably get there. But then I read these words, but I say to you, whoever looks upon a woman to lust after her has committed adultery already within his heart. And it was like an arrow pierced my heart. I suddenly realized I was guilty of that 100,000 times over. I was like every other red-blooded guy. I lived for lust. I gained great pleasure from lust. But once I understood that God saw my thought life, I suddenly saw my guilt, and I realized I'd be guilty on the day of judgment and wouldn't make it to heaven.
Now, let me relate to some of the objections that are going on out there from all of these guys and girls. People say, wait a minute, I have a problem with that commandment. I'm not so sure I agree with that one. Well, join the crowd. Most of the people in this world have a problem with lust. You see, people will say, are you saying it's wrong to look at a pretty girl? Well, no, it's not wrong to look at a pretty girl or a handsome guy, but there's a big difference between looking and lusting, and your conscience knows the difference. You see, lust is simply pornography of the mind, or as the Bible puts it, adultery of the heart.
Do you believe God exists?
No, I don't.
So you're an atheist?
Yeah, I was brought up Lutheran. I was the acolyte, whatever it was, at least that counts. I just personally believe that there's no higher being. I think that's people being weak and wanting to crutch, something to rely on, thinking once you're dead, something happens. But I believe once you're dead, that's all there is. There's no higher power.
See that building over there?
Which one?
That one on the corner?
The shoe store?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you know there was a builder?
Because I can see the building like I don't see God.
Yeah, but you can't see the builder. So think of it for a minute.
Builder? I know the builder, actually. His name was Billy.
Okay.
I actually know him.
You too?
Yeah, the other building I don't know, though.
Okay, well listen to this. You know there was
That building I just not know the builder, so I don't know who built it.
Okay. You know there's a builder because the building exists.
Yes.
You and I know there's a creator because creation exists. You can't have things made without a maker. And God gave you a conscience. Isn't that true? You've got a conscience. You know right from wrong.
Yes.
The word with conscience means with knowledge. So it's wrong to lie and steal. You told me before, do you believe in good and evil?
But just because I don't know the answer doesn't mean I can just say that God's the one who gave it to me. You know what I mean? I don't know who gave it to me. I don't know where it came from. I don't know. I wasn't at the beginning of time, but I'm not just going to go with the easy answer that faith gave it to, or faith, God, and that. You know what I mean?
So would you consider yourself to be a good person?
I believe I live by, doing good. I believe I'm a good person.
Have you ever told a lie?
Probably, yeah.
What does that make you?
It wasn't a lie that would hurt somebody, so I believe it would be all right.
If I tell a lie, what am I called?
I don't call anybody anything. I guess the answer was supposed to be a liar.
Yeah, that's good. Have you ever stolen anything?
No, I haven't.
You just
No, I
admitted to
don't
me.
steal from
You
work.
just admitted to me you're a liar.
Yeah, so I might have stolen something.
So have you ever stolen something, even if it's small, in your whole life? Please be honest.
No, I haven't.
You never have?
No.
Have you ever used God's name in vain?
Yeah, oh yeah.
You're an atheist?
No.
So instead of using a cuss word to express disgust, you've taken God's name and used it in blasphemy.
I'll yell some God just because it's a term of expression.
Now, Jesus said, whoever looks at a woman and lusts after her has committed adultery already with her in his heart. Have you ever looked at a woman with lust?
Oh yeah, brother. Yeah.
What's your name again?
Scott?
Scott, you've just...
I'm going to hell. Woo!
Scott, what are you laughing about? I don't want you to go to hell.
I don't believe in heaven or hell, so I think once I'm dead, that's all that's to it. So
Yeah, but tell me this.
I believe if you want to be a good man, you live right. Don't do anything wrong to anybody else. No one should do anything wrong to you, and you'll be all right.
Scott, if I'm standing in front of a judge and he says, you're going to the electric chair, and I says, oh, I don't believe in the electric chair, it's not going to change realities. Just because you don't believe in God's justice doesn't mean to say it disappears. God gave you a conscience. You know it's wrong to lie.
I believe,
and steal.
though, if there is a heaven and hell, you know what? When I die and I go up there, they'll understand the way I thought, and they'll look at the way I live. They won't look at whether I praised someone or bowed down to someone or went to a church. They'll look at the way I lived. Either they can judge me as a man or who I was and my personality and what I did and what I didn't, or I don't want to be with them anyways. If I have to, that's more of a dictatorship than anything else. If I have to live by their certain way, this and that, if I can't live as a good person and go to heaven, and there's a heaven, I don't want to be there anyways. They want to run like a dictatorship. All right.
Scott, you've just admitted to me you're not a good person. You've admitted to me you're a liar and a blasphemer and an adulterer at heart. So you can't enter heaven. And I don't want you to go to hell.
That all depends on how you gauge it, on what's bad and what's good.
Well, good is keeping the Ten Commandments.
I look at it as good. You can look at every little thing and be like, you're this or you're that. I look at it as I never maliciously and I've never intentionally hurt someone's feelings. So that way I'm going to be that I've never taken from someone, it wasn't mine.